Greetings ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. I will be your host, Thrones, bringing you a role-playing build known as Haldriin's Will Incarnate. Haldriin's Will Incarnate, in a nutshell, is a role-playing build intended specifically for a niche casual playstyle, questing around and a all-around normal content. It is in no way made for veteran content, it is not made for min-maxing, nor is it made for any type of difficult content or veteran dungeons. The build revolves around being a necromancer with the aesthetics fascination of the dragon cult and the dragon priest, while also using the theme of being a undead or a wannabe lich. We are all about utilizing the aesthetics of the dragon cult while using sets that give us those aesthetics of a lich. Haldriin's Will Incarnate can be any race, any gender, or even any class. However, I highly recommend the necromancer class. If Necromancer doesn't appeal to you, or you don't own the required class to play it, you can always go with the Dragon Knight and using the Dragon Knight abilities. However, you can always go with any class you want. While it can be any race and any gender, we will be showing you my iteration, which is Nord, and this time it's Dragon Priest and Dragon themed, so yeah. And the only two races that had interactions with dragons in the past to even form a cult are the Old Nords and some Khajiits in elsewhere. So going any other race, maybe you could go with a Scholar of the Dragon Priest and go with another race. However, if you want to go with this iteration of the story, I highly recommend the Nord and the Khajiits, as they give it their own feeling in the whole theme. Our character was a devote to the old dragons, and as such a devote to Haldriin. While never being recognized as a hostile himself, but he was always called a worm by Haldriin. He was the left man of Haldriin, but always taunted as a jest of friendship. As the Dragon Age came to an ending, our character was defeated as many others in the Great Dragon War, and his body left forgotten on the island of Bleakrock. After hundreds of years, our character found himself awake, with his rotten corpse of a body, because he figured that interacting with anyone in his current state would create a panic. As such, did he create the illusion spell for him to appear normal and not look like a literal walking corpse. While walking around taking all changes of his barely recognizable island, did he find that Sky Shroud Barrow is inhabited by various skeletal enemies summoned by a powerful necromancer named Severine Carnis. As such, he figured out that he too was summoned, but for an unknown reason he wasn't bound to him. A local Nord approaches him and requested your help to summon the Barrow's Dragon Priest Guardian Haldriin and restore the peace. Upon doing so, you become Haldriin's Will Incarnate, and as such, our character story begins. And now, for the build. Alright, for our character, we are using Nord, and there is no alternative to this race. You could go whatever the heck you want, if you want to just go with a Scholar or whatever, but considering the backstory and the theme itself, I really and highly recommend a Nord. I put everything into Magicka, so we are a Magicka based character, even though we are using a two-hander, but we'll get there in a second. For our stats, there's literally nothing overly special. We have quite a bit of health because we are a Nord. The resistance are also very high because of the same reason. We are using the Shadow Mundus stone. You can change to whatever the heck you want. I maybe even could recommend the Lordstone for more resistances, or you could go with the Lover Stone for more penetration. However, go whatever the heck you want. Really subjective stuff. I'm using the Witch Mother's Potent Brew for food, and that's basically it for the character. For our skills, because we are a necromancer on this one, I am using a very basic necromancer setup. I'm using a Recoquette skull. Yeah, it launches a skull at enemies, a exploding skeleton, hungry scythe for healing and healing over time, while also dealing AoE damage. I'm using Mystic Siphon just to connect to the enemy and stuff, and Skeletor Arcanist to summon another mage for us to, you know, launch zappy things at the enemy. On my back bar, I went with braided tether. The only reason I went with this is because I want a little bit of healing and I know there are quite a bit of alternatives. For example, you could go with Spirit Mender or Expurge or slotting in Pale Ordering or whatever, but I like the Beam, honestly, not gonna lie. Combos well with the Mystic Siphon. For the next one, it's Unstable Wall of Fire, Unnerving Boneyard, Necrotic Potency for a little bit of that ultimate, and Beckoning Armor. Nothing overly special for my ultimate. I'm going with Renovus Goliath, and I went with Glacier Colossus. You can play however you want. If you want to go Reanimate, if you want to go with the Elemental Storm, if you want to go with, I don't know, maybe even Soul Strike if you maxed it out, the skill line. You can even go with the Meteor in the major skill line. Just play around and see what tickles with you. For our gear, I went with a very special setup. I went with the Neths, guys. When you deal direct damage, you have a 15% to summon a Lich Crystal, which explodes after 2 seconds, dealing magic damage to all enemies within 4 meters. The effect can occur every 3 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. I really love this setup with everything else we're gonna combine. We'll get there in a second. It literally summons a giant ass crystal which explodes. You can see it by Calurian from the Fanglayer boss, or you can see it basically on every single Lich enemy in the game has a chance to summon a crystal, and we're using the set for that purpose. If you don't like this one, I highly recommend to go with... you can go with Zon as another beam. If you don't like Zon, want to go a little bit more stamina, you can go with Stone... Where is it? Stone Husk. Your heavy attack tethers you to enemy and gives you another beam. You can go with the beam one. However, there is one more, and I can't remember the name of it. Just second, I think. Yeah, here it is. Kjalnar's Nightmare set. Light attacking 5 times in a row, basically every 0.5 seconds, summons a big ass skeletal hand from the ground and grabs the enemy, either dealing damage or stunning and knocking him down. Either one, cool. You can even go with the fashion itself, just clear out the helmet and it will look badass. However, I went with Naraneth because I want the crystal for the Lichy aesthetics. For the armor pieces, you guessed it, it's Calorian's Legacy. Reason is, it summons the Lich shoulder things that you see on Liches in the game. When you deal critical damage with a light or heavy attack, you launch a projectile at your target which deals flame, frost, shock or disease damage that and applies the responsive status effect. This effect can occur every 10 seconds and scales off your weapon and spell damage. There is nothing there to add. We're using them for the shoulder things. We're using Naraneth for the crystal, and you guessed it, the last one is Baharaha's Curse. When you deal damage, you have a 25% chance to create a desecrated ground for 5 seconds, which reduces movement speed of enemies within 3.5 meters by 60%. Enemies with it basically damages them and heals you for 100% of the damage done. So we're getting quite a bit of healing there, and the reason we are using this, it summons a rune that Liches usually spawn, and it drops usually from... where is it? It drops from Hugh's Bane. You can find it by Bahrahas. I don't know where the dungeon is currently, I can't remember. Yeah, here it is, Bahrahas Gloom. You can find out the Lich there if you want to see how it looks basically, but yeah. For the traits, I went everything divines. Ideally, you want everything divines. You know, I went with light everything. For jewelry, I just went with arcane without really caring. I went a little bit with Magicka recovery. However, if you want more damage, you should just add a little bit more spell damage instead. And for weapons, I went with a great sword with a sharpened trait. There, as I said, it is a role-playing build. You don't necessarily need any particular traits. You don't get crap, honestly. This is just for questing around normal dungeons, normal content. So honestly speaking, I wouldn't recommend going anything overly special if you're going with this type of build. However, if you want to min-max out, you want maybe, I think, precise trade for the two-handed, or not even going two-handed and going with dual daggers. In this case, you would want to drop Baraha's Curse, you would want to drop Kaluri's Legacy. I mean, you could keep all of them basically and just slot out your slots, your skill points, and you could potentially make this build into a veteran build. However, I will not. It is a story-driven build, purely RP, and that's my disclaimer. For alternative sets, I could recommend you the Vatran Inferno stuff. For the beam one, you could ideally even make the whole build into a beam build, using with Zahn or Stonekeeper, combining with Vatran Inferno stuff for front bar. For the back bar, you can go with Vatran Restoration stuff. Where is it? No. Vatran, where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Casting for a siphon on a target within 15 meters causes you to surge a magical energy to tether between you and your enemy for 10 seconds. So basically another beam. You can even go with a full-on beam. There's one more from Ice Reach, I think it's the heavy set. When you taunt an enemy, you tether them for 15 seconds. So you can go all out with the beams if you desire so. However, I'm happy with whatever I want. If you don't have access to some of the DLCs, the Bahrara set you can buy in guild stores. It's really cheap, not overly expensive. You can get it in jewelry, wavy weapons, they're not that expensive. You could also go with the Lich set, which drops from, I think it was Vaults of Madness? I think it was Vaults of Madness, yeah. You can go with the Lich stuff. It's a unique style by itself, so you could try it out. You can also go with the Worm Cult if you desire as such. However, I will not go. If you don't have the Kalurian Legacy DLC to get the set, you have quite a bit of alternatives. As I said, you have the Lich set. You could try out some, I don't know, what's the set, what's the name? Yeah, I can't remember. Apologies on that. You can go with the Imperial, giving you some shields if you want. Draugr is even better, dealing damage with to an enemy. Places a ghostly curse on your enemy for 6 seconds. Cursed enemies take extra damage from all your damage abilities. It is a beautiful set. You can go with it, honestly, purely subjective. You can try out Mother Sorrow if you want to get a little bit more damage, but as mentioned, I will not do that because, yeah, I'm going with this kind of setup. However, if you find another set that fits your build perfectly, just go with that set without even thinking. You could try out maybe, I don't know, Leeching. You can make it a bleeding Lich build, combining Bahrara's Curse with Leeching, or Bahrara's Curse with Crimson set from the Castle Thorn, which after taking damage you surround yourself with a mist of blood, healing you for all the damage done basically. If you don't like that and want to go with a little bit more Dwemery style, you can always go with Clockwork City Livewire. When you take damage, you overload your Circus Supply and Concussion, healing you. Just play around with all the sets. If you find something that resonates with your character, just go with that. You can even try out Hollowfang if you want to go a little bit more vampiric. However, my character is a little bit more undead rather than vampires, hence I went with a full Lich aesthetics and a Dragon Priest wannabe cultist. For the CP, craft skill line, nothing too special. Rationer, liquid efficiency, a little bit speed while running around, and treasure hunter for a little bit better loot. If you don't like this one and want a little bit more gold, just go to Gilded Fingers, Fortune's Favor, Inspiration Boost if you want to go a little bit more crafty on your character. However, it's purely subjective, as I say in every video of mine. For the Warfare skill line, the only one I can recommend is Reaving Blows, and that's literally the only I will recommend. Everything else is just to boost, you know, giving us a little bit of boost, giving us a little bit critical chance, stamina, magicka, more critical damage. However, Master at Arms pairs well with Reaving Blows, so you can go whatever the heck you want. I will not push you to do anything. However, if you want to copy my own build, feel free to do so. I went with a little bit of Bless since I have over 1500 CP in total. So if I had to give a priority, Reaving Blows, Fighting Finis, Thaumaturge and Monster at Arms. Everything else you can fill in slowly. You want maximum Magicka, maximum stamina. I put everything, all three of these, for the 10% of damage reduction, 2% and 2%, which is not a lot honestly, but you know, it's something. Piercing, not this one. You want Flawless Ritual and War Mage. The left side is basically for the mages and the right side is for stamina. However, I went with both since I have quite a bit of CP. If you want to go a little bit more quirky, you can always go with the Kill It Overload, which whenever you kill an enemy under the effect of a status effect, they violently explode for Oblivion damage and dealing all damage around your enemies. It could go with a, I don't know, it could be fun. For the fitness skill line, you want only siphoning spells. Everything else is purely subjective. Boundless Vitality and Fortified for me is only because I'm a Nord and I like being, well, staying alive. I went with siphoning spells. The only one I can recommend is giving you Magicka every time you kill an enemy, and it is very nice for your resources. However, I also went with Blood Renewal since I like to run around and roll dodge and sometimes even block. Even in normal dungeons, I like having my resource pools always full. However, if you want to copy, you can tell basically what I did in my builds. I filled in all the yellow ones basically. However, if you need a priority, I really recommend siphoning spells first before anything. If you're a Magicka, if you're a stamina, just go Blood Renewal, and everything else just find your own taste. If you want a little bit more health, go with health. If you want a little bit more armor, go armor. As I mentioned, everything here is purely subjective. It is a role-playing build, and yeah, do what you want. For fashion, I went with Horned Dragon Light Helmet, Horned Dragon Light chest piece. I think I went with medium hands and boots and scale collar pants, but you can always go with Horned Dragon, you know, pants, because they're the same basically. However, I don't own the horned ones. And Horned Dragon belt. So basically everything Horned Dragon except the shoulder piece I went with Zan. However, don't let me discourage you because the shoulder piece can cost quite a bit, and you can go with the skill color if you wish such. I recommend the heavy ones if you know how to color them correctly. It's just, you know, add a little bit of here and a little bit of this one here and a little bit of black. And we good. Actually, this is the opposite direction. I apologize. Go with this one. Yeah, you can go like this if you want to, or you can go with the horned ones if you do not own the skill color. I recommend the heavy ones. However, you can go with however you like. If you like the light ones, medium, heavy, up to you. Or you can even go with Dragon Bone. Looks actually pretty nice if you want to go that. However, I went with Zan and I wanted to stick as close as I could to the Dragon Priest aesthetics rather than Dragon Bone aesthetics, because my Dragon Bone character is a separate entity. For weapons, I went with Zan Greatsword and Zan Staff. Reason being, it has a glow on its weapons. It has this really beautiful glowy thingy on its sword. Fits nice. If you want to go with the Zan helmet and shoulder with these, go with it. However, if you do not own these, you can always go with Skill Collar or Horned Dragon. The Horned Dragon Battle Axe actually looks really beautiful, almost like a scythe, but it's not a scythe, but I don't know what this is. You can go with two-handed as well, or a two-handed greatsword. For the staff, the Horned Dragon really looks more beautiful than Skill Collar because of this pattern around it. The Skill Collar one is more close to the original ones you know in Skyrim. However, if you don't like either of them, you can play around and go with Draugr. The Dragon fashion itself is well, it's really easy to get and it's very cheap to get as well, so play around, see what fits you best. You can try out maybe Fanglair fashion, a little bit of Ice Reach if you prefer that, or you can even go with the Worm fashion, which is right here. if you want to go a little bit with the undead theme or whatever really tingles your taste buds. Yeah. Scale color, as I said, is one alternative if you want to go a little bit more edgy, evil. I'm only using the Horned Dragon Light Helmet because I own it. However, if you do not own it, you can always go Scale Color, even Zon if you want to. However, going Zon is a little bit more over the top and doesn't fit the theme as correctly, but you know, play it with yourself, see what you want. Any alternatives, as I mentioned, you can go with Dragon God, you can go with Bone, anything that resembles some bones, maybe Dragon Priest, anything that resembles a undead. Just play around. You can go even with a Prisoner's Fashion to go even more with a undead theme. Maybe a little bit of Shackles, Saisahan if you want to show off your skin, your chest piece, your tatters or whatever. You can try out Skull Explorer, Snowhawk for a little bit of that Nord aesthetics. You could even try out, I don't know, Sword Thane, maybe even Skin Changer. Scale Color, as I mentioned, is my main recommendation, or Horned Dragon. For everything else, I went with the Zombie skin or the Decayed Zombie. However, if you don't have it, don't fret, you can just, you know, play around. I'm using the Zombie personality as well. If you don't want to go with the Zombie or more of a serious mage, you can always go with the Talvani Magister. You get it from the Morrowind questline. I will not spoil anything, however, it is located, and you can get the personality by doing the quest in Sadrith Mora by speaking to this one Argonian around the docks here. It is a longer quest line, it's more fetch, talk to this guy, talk to that guy, and sooner or later you just get the personality, and you can go with that mage aesthetics. And by the skin you can always go with a Necromancer skin, or just fit whatever you like or own. If you don't own any skin, just don't use a skin. You don't have to use it, it's just the aesthetics of this character. You can always try out a little bit of the Dragon Priest masks if you do own them, and play around. I recommend these ones from the Elsewhere on Khajiits rather than Nords, and that makes me actually change the opinion that you don't have to be a Nord to be this thing. You can always go with Cat, but I'm gonna go with Nord on this one. Mask Alkosh, you can get this one by just doing the main quest in North Elsewhere. You can go with a Turban or even the Renegade Dragon Priest masks from entering Fanglair or Scale Color, and just dye it to fit the rest of the armor and it can go. However, I dislike the fashion of this one. It is too close to a Necromancer rather than a Dragon Priest mask or whatever. But yeah, you can play around. If you don't like the outfit itself, you can just go with the Dragon Priest fashion if you want to, or you can go, if you own it, you can go with the Renegade Dragon Priest, which is basically Zan's fashion from the dungeon from Zan. Just play around, see what fits. If you own the other Dragon Priest masks, try those out. If you don't like any of them, don't go with them. If you want to go with that Green Skull for that aesthetics, go for it. Everything is purely subjective. Anyways guys, thanks for watching.